I was with my boyfriend for 3 years and my best friend for 10. And what hurts most isn't that they betrayed me, it's that they were comfortable doing it, confident that I was too stable, too reliable, too busy holding everyone together to ever look closely enough to catch them. They laughed behind my back about how I never noticed anything while I was busy protecting their reputations, fixing their messes, and smoothing over their lies. And when I finally saw the truth on his laptop screen, I didn't cry, I didn't scream, and I didn't expose them. I just stopped helping. And that quiet decision did more damage than any revenge ever could. If you believe silence can be power, like and subscribe. I was always the dependable one, the woman everyone described as calm, grounded, and emotionally strong. The kind of person people leaned on without ever asking how much weight I was already carrying. I remembered birthdays, followed up on job applications, reminded my boyfriend about deadlines, smoothed over his social missteps, and quietly made sure my best friend looked competent, capable, and polished in rooms she wasn't ready for yet. And they loved me for it, or at least that's what I thought, because my reliability made their lives easier, not because they respected it. When my boyfriend called me low maintenance, I took it as a compliment. When my best friend joked that I was the responsible one, I smiled, not realizing that in their minds, responsibility translated to invisibility, especially when my own life got heavier. My work became stressful, my energy dipped, and I stopped hovering over everyone else's needs. Because while I was exhausted and trying to keep my head above water, they were bonding in the gaps I left behind. Late nights turned into inside jokes, shared frustrations turned into secrets, and subtle glances replaced open conversations. But I trusted them because trust was my default setting. I never checked phones, never asked questions that made me feel paranoid, and never imagined that the two people who leaned on me the most were using my emotional labor as cover. What I didn't see at the time was how often I made excuses for him when he was late, how many opportunities I quietly handed her by recommending her name in rooms she couldn't access alone, how often I absorbed discomfort so they wouldn't have to. I was the glue in a dynamic that only worked because I was constantly adjusting myself, shrinking my needs, and softening their flaws. And while I thought I was building a stable life, they were building something else entirely, something that only functioned because I wasn't looking too closely, because I was too busy being useful to question why I was slowly disappearing inside my own relationships. If you've ever been the one who held everything together, like and subscribe. I didn't uncover the truth in some dramatic confrontation or emotional showdown. It happened in the most boring, ordinary way possible. My phone was dead. I grabbed his laptop to order food, and a message popped up from her that didn't belong to someone who was just a friend. And in that single second, my body went cold, not because I saw something graphic, but because months of strange moments suddenly aligned perfectly. The late nights, the jokes I wasn't part of, the way they exchanged looks I couldn't decode. But the part that broke me wasn't the affair itself. It was reading their messages, where they laughed about how I never noticed anything, how I was too busy being responsible, how I was predictable, stable, and therefore blind. And I realized that my trust hadn't just been violated, it had been mocked, weaponized, and used as a safety net while they experimented with betraying me. I didn't scream, I didn't wake him up, and I didn't text her in rage. Instead, I felt an eerie calm settle in, the kind that comes when denial finally collapses and the truth stands alone, undeniable and clean. I stayed awake that night, replaying every moment where I had stepped in to protect them. Every time I covered for him socially, every time I vouched for her professionally. And it became painfully clear that their confidence didn't come from secrecy, it came from dependence. They knew I was the one holding the structure upright, holding their images together, holding their lies in place. And in that stillness, I made a decision that felt almost boring in its simplicity. I wouldn't confront them, I wouldn't expose them, and I wouldn't fight for people who were comfortable laughing at my loyalty. I would just stop participating, stop buffering their consequences, and stop being the reason their world felt stable. Because I suddenly understood that I didn't need to destroy anything. All I had to do was step out of the way and let gravity do the rest. If you believe clarity is stronger than chaos, like and subscribe. My revenge didn't look like revenge at all. I simply withdrew. I stopped reminding him about commitments, stopped making excuses when he disappointed people, and stopped organizing his life behind the scenes. I stopped recommending her name, stopped pulling strings, and stopped inviting either of them into rooms where my credibility had once protected them. And the collapse was immediate and almost embarrassing to watch. Without my quiet interventions, his stories stopped lining up. Deadlines were missed, and people began noticing patterns I had spent years smoothing over. Without my support, her confidence cracked. Opportunities dried up, and her version of events started changing depending on who she spoke to. When mutual friends asked me what was wrong, I didn't gossip, I didn't accuse, and I didn't defend myself. I just said, "You should ask them." And that was enough, because the truth doesn't need a spokesperson when lies are doing all the work. What shocked me most was their reaction, not guilt or accountability, but panic. He accused me of being cruel for withholding support. She called me manipulative for pulling away, as if my silence was an attack rather than a boundary. But for the first time, I didn't rush to explain myself. I didn't soften my choices, and I didn't make myself smaller to keep them comfortable. I let them sit in the consequences of a life without my emotional labor. I lost a boyfriend and a best friend, and some days that loss still aches. But what I gained was something far more valuable: my agency, my clarity, and my peace, because I finally understood that the most devastating thing you can do to people who take you for granted isn't exposure, it's absence. When you stop holding them up, they don't fall because you pushed them. They fall because they were never standing on their own. And choosing myself was the first honest thing I'd done in years. If you're choosing peace over proving your worth, like and subscribe.